Welcome to the channel for all things fermented, brewed, and distilled. So in my last video, I talked about going to India to develop some gin recipes. So this video is the second part in that series. So let's go. This is the view from the rooftop of the house that I stayed in while I was working in India. My boss, Raul, was telling me that his family has a few businesses, and so they have a few different houses in India, and so I was just staying at this one in Bhubaneswar. I was treated very well there. I would take pictures of all my meals and send it to my family back in Canada to show them how well I was living. I started every day off with a cup of chai, tea, and some biscuits, which were delivered to my room, and then that would be taken away, and then I'd get a plate of various fruits delivered to my room, and then after that I'd have my main breakfast. And it would always be something really nice prepared by the house stores that they had living in that house. Yeah, and after breakfast I would be driven to the quality bottling plant. Here's a view from the car window on the drive to the quality bottling plant. Shailendra, Prem, and I settled into a routine to develop our gin recipes. So basically they had prepared a bunch of botanicals before I got there, and the table was filled with botanicals, and I just decided that we would make a lot of gin recipes. I made about 10, and then we picked 7 to do a sensory analysis test on them. So our usual process would be, I would look at all the botanicals laid out on the table, I would smell them, taste them, and then come up with just some recipes out of my head. And I'd give these botanical mixtures to Prem and Shailendra, and they would actually carry out the distillation. So the first step is to measure out the botanicals to produce about 1 liter of final gin product. So after I've measured out the botanicals, I'll steep it in 1 liter of ENS, extra neutral spirit. Another name for it is grain neutral spirit. And this extra neutral spirit has been watered down, so it's 40% ABV. And we'll steep these botanicals overnight, and the next morning I'll pour everything, the whole mixture, into this copper pot still. We'll close it up, and here we're lighting the flame to get the distillation going. And so the mixture will be heated up until it's boiling. The alcohol will change from a liquid phase to a gas phase as the mixture is boiled. The alcohol will travel up, go down the line arm, and then it will reach the worm tub, which is filled with cold running water. And when this vapor, this gas, hits that cold front, it will change back into the liquid phase, and it will travel down these coils here, getting more cold as it travels down. And finally, when it reaches the bottom, we'll collect it in this glass beaker here, and that's our distillate. And now you'll see that Shailendra has put the distillate in a volumetric cylinder to get an accurate reading of the volume. And then he's going to put a glass hydrometer in it to get a reading of the alcohol percentage. After that, he's going to add water to it to dilute it down to 40% ABV. And for all our distillations, the final sample, we diluted it down to 40%, just so during the sensory analysis, we can get an accurate comparison between all the different flavors. I'm just in the sensory analysis lab now, and these are the gins that I've made so far. Let me just show you around. So these are the gins. This is the room. Oh, yes, and there we go. Okay. These are my 3 tests so far. So we've got a pink one, a London Dry, and this one is my favorite so far. This jasmine, lotus seed, and mango for sweetness. This is another view of our lab. And while I was there, it was nearing the end of the monsoon season. There would be storms that would start and stop suddenly. And sometimes we'd lose power as well during these thunderstorms. And again, we kept doing that for about 10 gins. We kept talking about them, tasting them, and then finally, when it was all done, we decided to have a very formal sensory analysis test. And I've made some sensory analysis videos on this channel. That's how I learned to do sensory analysis when I was in brewing school. And so I really do follow those techniques and rules that I outlined in those videos. I was the one that administered the sensory analysis test, so our panelists were just Prem, Shailendra, and Rahul the first time we did the test. It didn't really matter to me if I was a panelist, since they're crafting a gin recipe for consumers in India. I feel like they're more representative of what consumers in India will like. And it's actually very time consuming to set up a test like that, even if it's just for 3 people. Preparing the cups with numbered codes and pouring out the samples of gin actually took a really long time to do, surprisingly. Here you can see I've laid out the samples and I've coded them with 3-digit numbered codes. And I do it this way instead of numbering them 1, 2, 3, 4 or A, B, C, D, because people might have a bias of thinking, oh, number 1, it's number 1, so it must be the best. So that's why it's recommended you make these codes rather than to do it 1, 2, 3. You'll also see I've given every sensory panelist a bottle of water, and there's also some rice puffs on the side. And so the idea is they'll try a sample of gin, and then they'll have a sip of water, eat some rice puffs to clear their palate before trying the next sample. And I'll post the link to those sensory analysis videos on the top corner here, so you can watch them if you would like to learn more about doing sensory panel tests. And when I finished setting up the testing room, they came in and all 3 of them had been just eating a bunch of chips, which isn't ideal when starting a sensory panel test. You'd like panelists to have more of a neutral palate, to not have been smoking or drinking coffee or eating chips or chewing gum prior to the test. But we work with what we have. This is after the ranking test. We're going over the results and we're deciding which 2 initial gin recipes that we tried are worth working on more and refining. So from the initial sensory tests that we did, we decided to continue working on gin recipe number 3 and gin recipe number 7. So of the 10 gins that we made, I had 7 that I presented to them for the blind taste test. They just ranked them in order of their favorite to least favorite, and that was 1 is the favorite and 7 is the least favorite. This was the first sensory analysis test that we did, and I could see that they struggled a lot with it. As they told me before, Indian people don't really drink gin. They mainly drink whiskey and maybe a little bit of rum. Those are the main sellers. So no one really drinks gin here, and they don't know what it's supposed to taste like. They don't know what a good gin is, they don't know what a bad gin is. And that really influenced the results of the test as well. I just told them to rank the gins based on their preference, and to not worry so much about what they think a good gin tastes like. In all the sensory tests that we did, I always gave them Bombay Sapphire as well, just to see how our gins would compare against Bombay Sapphire. And generally, our gins were preferred over Bombay Sapphire, so that was really nice to see. It would be sad if I came all the way from Canada and they didn't like any of the gins that I made for them. Whew, that was good. After the sensory analysis test, we decided to focus in on gin number 3 and gin number 7, since I came to India specifically to formulate 2 craft gin recipes for them. Some of the ingredients in gin number 3 and 7 are juniper berries, of course, which is the essential ingredient to make a gin a gin. I noticed when I was in India that the juniper berries we were using were very brown colored, and they were also very big. Their flavor was a bit different from what I was used to using in the UK, so that definitely affected the flavor somewhat. We also used coriander seeds, and there was a citrus element like lemon peel in the recipes. And for both recipes, I put a bit of mango in them for sweetness. Since I was paid to create these 2 gin recipes for the distillery, I'm not able to go into exactly what all the specific ingredients are and the amounts that we used for the recipes. I hope you enjoyed watching part 2 of my Adventures Distilling Gin in India series. Stay tuned for the next part. In the meantime, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. This is Bluebird, sending good vibes your way. I'll see you next time!